Welcome to Nostalgia Pilots, a mobile fighter G Gundam that is very sensitive to hostile actions against themselves. I'm Hugh.
I'm Jurd.
I'm Jason.
And I'm Spence.
And we're here to discuss Mobile Fighter G Gundam Episode 12. He's the Undefeated of the East. Master Asia appears.
Oh, that name.
That's a thing.
That's a name.
That's a ponytail.
Listen, who needs to go?
There's some major prop work with that ponytail, just saying. But I think we should start with where this episode starts off with, where the space colony for Neo Japan is getting an SOS, if you will.
Yes, so the guy who is, I guess, the leader of the space colony gets woken up in his space bed, in his space pajamas and space nightcap.
Wait, hold on, though. We also have to be very specific about a detail that I just could not avoid. I know I've harped on the shape of the colonies in the past. I know I've, Texas, whatever, fine. The trailing islands, the trailing Japanese islands, those little tiny dotto guys at the very bottom, are in place in the colony. How do they keep them there?
It is a mini black hole that creates just enough gravitational pull to keep them that far away.
Yeah, those are the asteroids that they're mining for oxygen and water and supplies, and they just replace those every so often.
I mean,
I kind of like that idea that they just keep shunting it into the same slot so that it keeps the aesthetic sense. And they probably also charge for tourism.
I mean, but also, in the traditional sense, right? Sumo, when they do the opening ceremony, it's basically to protect the islands of Japan from tsunamis and sinking and terrible badness, right? So maybe the power and the will and the samurai code and the Yokozuna spirit has kept them literally chained through some supernatural force, because obviously Master Asia's a freaking monster.
Well, Master Asia is a monster, but not for the reasons you think.
Wait, hold on, though. The person I expect to be a monster is the chillest man in the room. What's the name of the guy with the mask again? What's his name in this one?
Urube?
And, every time we get one of these masked guys, the half mask, I'm expecting, all right, here comes the villain, here comes the dude who's going to be over the top the entire time. He is so relaxed, he's just all right, let's just progress this little experiment along.
Well, I don't want to give spoilers for the second half of the series, so I will say nothing.
All right, then.
I was also happy to see that they're continuing the 70s-style sunken pit tech. For some reason, you can't stand at a desk or at a console. If you have technology around you, you need to be in the floor.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's because heat rises, and so they've got to keep all the equipment cool, so they have to keep the equipment as low as possible, and yeah.
Yeah, they also have super high-powered air conditioners at ground level.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's ankles are very cold.
There are many instances of frostbite.
Well, so basically this guy gets woken up from his 19th century sleeping attire.
Don't you know that this is when we sleep on Neo Japan?
Yes. and he gets the message that Tokyo has gone dark. And his response to this is, well, I know it's just Earth, but I guess we have to check it out. Make Domon do it.
Everyone keeps bashing on Earth like Earth is some trash heap. And I'm most of these places are okay. Japan looks a little rough because there is a fight going on. But for the most part, it's got intact buildings and lights.
Well, they do reveal this episode that Tokyo was fine, and then Master Asia showed up, and the Devil Gundam showed up, and it just, destroyed all the buildings.
And now it's a giant refugee camp.
I mean, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, but the weird thing about that situation to me was how they kept emphasizing the fact that it's the center of capitalism and finance that's been destroyed. It's not like these people's homes or, our community has been shattered. For some reason, they keep hyping on the fact that it used to be big in finance.
Listen, without Akihabara, where are the nerds going to go touristing? They need, look, the Devil Gundam has a thing against capitalism. It destroyed all of Akihabara.
Yeah. Well,
I'd be okay with
if
that.
you destroy Shinjuku, where will people go to like buy Lolita fashions?
Indeed. All of my
And I guess that was the economy after the colonies got put into place. It was just Lolita fashion or off to space.
Oh, absolutely. It was only you either go to space or in some sort of cafe where the cat cafe makes one of the two. That's all you had left.
It's entirely a cafe culture, like the civilization from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy that could only make shoes. Only themed cafes in the future.
Okay, before we get into Domon having to run his errand, though, I did want to note that I'm pretty sure, and it was probably intentional, that the patch was on the different side for the announcer this time. I think that patch just sits on whatever angle they want for the opening of that show.
Well, he also had to worry about the lighting because he was on site.
Oh yeah, that's right.
He was on location and therefore had to change for the lighting.
Now, actually, that puts me in mind of what I wish they would do, which was a meta Gundam show where there was like a reality. Like we're always given these hints, like at the end of Gundam Wing with Relina's safari thing and the weird camera thing at the end of 8th MS. The idea that there's a camera crew following Domon and Rain around and that they're constantly getting into trouble, that would actually be really entertaining. Like they're trying to record this Gundam fight, but it's constantly almost killing them. That's
Like a Gundam mockumentary.
Then you could have the photo shoot that shows Rain in a rain-soaked reflection that we see in the closing credits.
It finally all comes together.
See? We're brilliant. The newbies are brilliant, and that's all I have to say about it.
Oh man, I speaking of this guy and his like Mary Tyler Moore-esque, we're sleeping in a bed pajamas. I really love Domon gets sent on this mission, but doesn't get a chance to do anything. Like he gets over to Tokyo, and then immediately when he goes to call his Gundam, someone's like, hold on, I got this. Like,
well, it's not. It's like they're there, and then they see a dude coming at them, and he's like, "Wait, are they coming for us? Oh crap!" And it's not even. It just crashes off to the side, and then doesn't Rain basically come to the rescue on that fella? Like, yes. You're right, Domon, he does nothing.
So, they see a crashed airplane. Like a airplane crashes in front of them, and a guy shakily hands Rain a floppy disk and then dies.
Yeah, 3.5.
And that's when we can tell what era this was animated in, because that was the pinnacle of data storage.
Yes. That has 1.4 megabytes on it.
You could play Frogger off of that.
Yeah, that could probably hold half of Doom.
No, I would say you could get some Number Muncher, maybe some Oregon Trail. I feel like this guy was like, don't let my perfect run of Oregon Trail perish. We didn't die of dysentery. And he just
the problem is that in order to save money, they ran their whole espionage system through shareware.
Actually, if Gundam Wing taught me anything, it's just a bunch of instructions for Photoshop.
Probably. But then we do see what was fighting him, and we are introduced to the Death Army.
By the way, I do like their character, the way they've upgraded these Zaku's, because that's basically what they are.
They're Zaku's with human eyeballs.
And they're Cyclopses.
Centaurs, Cyclops, Zaku's, yeah. They're creepy though. They're the extra legs and the human eyeball at a level of creep that I was not expecting this series to play to my horror instinct so much, but I feel these last, the Mummy and this thing, there are some creepy little things.
Yeah, and
the thing is that they start out with a horror, and then they immediately destroy that sort of vibe.
Yeah.
Ray's just showing up.
It's still, it definitely is to some level still a kid's show, even if it's a kid's show that's more mature perhaps than a North American audience would be used to, if that makes sense.
Like there's some very like intense imagery, and then it like immediately breaks that tension.
Well, yes, and let's speak to, because this is about when Master Asia shows up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I have a theory. So my theory is this. I don't think I would love Master Asia as much as I do if I hadn't seen a few other of these series. I think he's a badass within the context of G Gundam in itself, but the idea that this guy shows up, steals a man's headband, and then manages to defeat a Zaku with his bare hands, when you've just been through, like, especially contrasted to, like, 8th MS, you know, it's like, oh, we're slogging through the jungle, whatever, every foot's a murder. And then he just, like, kung fu's a robot to death.
He caught a pair of shells with his bare hands and then pushed them back into the gun.
Yeah, he doesn't destroy just one. He destroys like 2 or 3 because he flips one over and crushes it with the ground. Like he
lifts a piece of concrete over that it is staring on. He literally like bench presses 3 tons.
And then and before that, he crushes one's head with Domon's headband, and then he rams the bullets back in the gun of the other one, and then is like, the last one I'm not worried about. I'm just gonna walk off and let these other 2 flunkies handle it. Like
after 10 episodes of trying to be sort of like, here's Domon on the back foot, we are firmly back into a world where martial arts are superpowers. From the first episode.
I think we've called it machismo.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. But we do get a surprise that's sort of counterintuitive in that Domon almost immediately starts weeping openly, which I did not expect to have happen.
This is the most emotion we've seen from Domon the entire series. Even more so than when his mother died and his father was cryogenically frozen because his brother betrayed him and he was put into a genjutsu by that dude in a mask.
Mm-hmm.
Or when Rain almost left him for the guy in the Turkish Gundam.
Yes, absolutely. He is far more emotional than when he almost lost the only friend he has in this series.
Well, it does play out, though, that you feel like you can see some of the weight that he's been carrying this entire time. Because he doesn't... Maybe everybody else, he sort of has to play that role, because, you know, he's constantly like, no, I'm just going to do it my own way, even if he does end up saving the person in danger that everyone's trying to encourage him to save, or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And this is sort of the first time he's acknowledging that this is somebody who's, like, better than him in a way, like someone who he can look up to and give his power, like, problems onto, and who might actually be able to do something about it.
Yeah, and I mean, I love seeing Domon suffer because reasons. But the, having it break over the last few episodes, because we started to see it when Saisaichi was needing that big brother figure and was latching onto Domon about it.
He did give him his cape.
He gave him his cape. And then we see it again where Rain is thinking about leaving to be with her old boyfriend who is suffering the effects of the death gun, or the devil gunman. The regeneration properties.
EG cells.
Yeah, that. So we've been watching it happen over the last couple of episodes. So it makes sense that now, like you said, he's got some relief. He sees somebody who's more powerful than him. He can relinquish some of his perceived power. He has no power. It's Rain's power. Let's be real.
And it's definitely a father figure type thing for him. And I do feel for him in this because it seems like, through the context of how they talk, that they have not seen each other in a while. Because he has to relay to him what happened with his parents and his brother and the Devil Gundam and all that good stuff.
Before we get into that, can we talk about the secret handshake of the Undefeated of the East?
Okay.
Yes. Look, the East is burning red.
Oh, okay. So it starts.
This is the most if they were from New Zealand, I think this was some kind of haka.
Okay, so it starts with Domon going, "Master," and then Master Asia immediately says, "Answer me, Domon. The school of the Undefeated of the East." And then Domon answers, "The winds of the king." And then Master Asia says Zenshin, which literally translates to whole body. And Domon then answers with Kairetsu, which equals series. And then they say together, Tempa Kyuran. This was the hardest part to translate because Kyoran by itself means lunatic, crazy, insane, confused, fury, or madness. And Tempa is actually translated slightly wrong because there's no there's no word in Japanese that sounds like this that's written with an M. So it's probably un. So it would be Timpa. Blah, my Japanese is terrible. Which would translate to temper. So basically, it translates roughly to angry lunatic or angry fury or angry madness. And then they say, as Hugh said, look, the east is burning red. And they stand there giving the most burning youth manly machismo punch to one another, fist bump ever.
You can do the fist bump with me on the screen.
Turned into flames.
So, and I'm just sitting here going, that is something the Marines would do.
It is so amazing. Like,
if I could simulate the electric shocks that happen, I would totally demand we do this next time we meet in person.
Listen, and just so you know, since I've watched ahead, they don't stop the insanity. Like, it continues.
No, it's a series of insane fury.
But I do love this. And even Rain is like the visage.
Like, what is happening?
She's like the visage for the audience because she's like, wow, I've never seen Domon this happy. Not even with me. Like,
yeah. Well, because he's laughing and like childlike.
Laughing, crying, yeah. He's all,
He's a mess. And that's when the JSDF robots show up. And they escort them into Shinjuku City Hall, which has become which is like the last building standing and has become their fortress, as Master Asia calls it.
And this is where I think Spence's references to Star Wars.
It's like such a Star Wars
thing. Okay.
This is the mission against the Death Star.
Can I go on my rant?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. So first, you have the data that many lives were sacrificed to retrieve this data.
So many boffins.
So many boffins died. Boffins are hilarious, aren't they? Anyway, so you have that. You have the bottleneck strategy. You've got the one guy in the back going, "You can't do that. That's harder than blah, 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 blah." And so it's just like the whole planning session is a total ripoff of episode 4 of Star Wars. I said it. I meant what I said. And I am not wrong.
And to be fair, they do get the information technically from the princess of the series, right? Like,
there you go.
She did give she did give this information like she was Princess Leia. So like, it's really all there. Like, it just.
I respect the theory, but I will point out one minor problem in that the attack plan was not Luke Skywalker will spin in a circle real fast and Han Solo will throw him at the bad guys. Because that's what ends up happening here.
Look, Luke Skywalker is Domon, and Master Asia is that perfectly timed photon torpedo guided by the Force. Just saying. Again, I am not wrong.
Yeah, that's fair.
I will say that Star Wars would be that much better if someone did demonstratively play their ponytail like a flute.
Okay, so that part made me chuckle in a different sense because I used to live in that area of Germany and the Netherlands, and so when he starts playing his braid like a flute and saying "We will be the pipers of Hamelin," I'm like, I understand that reference.
I just need Luke Skywalker to throw Yoda at a Death Star. Like, I need them to, like, summon their weird forced kung fu wizard powers and him to throw him like that.
No, but listen, we can't...
Fastball special.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought it was, the fastball special. But we can't belittle this enough, because I need you to understand that there is a head which is sticking out of a rotating force field of some kind that then gets thrust at the enemy. Like, Master Asia's head is standing in front of this ball of light.
Here's what happens. They go out to fight all of these robots. Master Asia is in his robot, which is the Kowloon Gundam, named after Kowloon walled city in Hong Kong, which is, I don't know, not great considering that was a slum.
Yeah.
And he starts, like, spinning really fast, and that's when it chooses to do the stylistic thing where the Gundam gets replaced by the character who's piloting it, which, you know, this series loves to do all the time. So this spinning robot has Master Asia's head screaming, and then Domon launches it somehow. But it's not fully explained or animated well.
I don't know if any of you guys have seen Kuroko no Basket, which is the basketball anime that came out a couple years ago. There's a palm strike punch that like they use to pass the ball really fast. So I feel like Domon summoned.
Like it's a volleyball?
Yes. So I feel like Domon summons that type of power to shoot Master Asia like he was playing Sonic Spinball. Showing my age here, around the battlefield. And by the way, this is the most powerful attack we've ever seen in this show.
By far, you see a field of Zaku's, like more robots in one place than we've ever seen, and that ball goes through and just lights them up like a friggin' torpedo. Like, it just does not stop moving. It's explosions from here to the horizon.
Dr. Robotnik weeps at the loss of these robots.
So, and basically what this attack is meant to do is it's meant to get all of their attention because they, like, respond to aggression. These, I guess, AI-controlled robots. And then, like, Master Asia and Domon will, like, walk into the sea, and then I guess the theory is that they won't be waterproof or something? Like, because they go into the sea and they seem fine.
Yeah, I don't know why wandering into the sea is how they're going to be defeated, because even their Gundams are waterproof. Like, we've seen this already. Like, what is it in the episode where they were in Mexico? Like, I'm pretty sure that Gundam was hidden underwater. Like, Domon has hidden the Shining Gundam multiple times underwater.
I want to know how they fight corrosion, because salt corrodes.
Well, I think it's like adamantium, right? Like, why does Wolverine not die from blood poisoning because he has metal attached to his bones? It's because adamantium doesn't rust, right?
Well, no, it's because he literally has a healing power that, like, compensates for the fact that his metal bones are killing him all the time.
Yeah, and also, again, like Gundanium, it doesn't rust, right? Like, why does Katra's Gundam not get, like, clogged with sand? You know what I'm saying? Like, Gundam's Gundanium's a magical metal that.
And how do the cancers work?
Yeah, exactly.
Not well. So yes, this is the brilliant plan, as improbable as it is, that they're going to lead all of these weird one-eyed Zaku's out to the into the drink, essentially. But then one lone soldier can't hold his fire, and he manages to draw the attention. And to the civilian population, essentially, who are standing around a building which I suspect might be notable to somebody who knows what the building is, because it did look like a real building.
That's pretty much Tokyo City Hall.
Okay, so yeah, I felt like it was a building of note. I just could not identify it. But I did note and identify the weird looming robot that comes up behind it, and I'm actually going to send this image to the chat right now. The problem with giving a Zaku a human eyeball is that in the wrong scene, it can look like it's smirking at you. Like, this is a robot that has come over here like, oh, I see you humans.
She's like, what's all going on over here?
Yeah,
Boy.
that seam definitely looks like a beak or some kind of very sassy smile.
Or like,
Also, I want to say that like the shade of red that they've painted the rest of the eyeball, like the sclera, makes it
That's
look
a
like this
major
robot
pink eye
is super high.
issues.
Yeah, that robot's been hanging around certain parts of Canada for a while.
listen, it's basically Frogman from Mega Man, okay? Like, it's basically like it's got these big like reptilian lips. Like, it's just it's just,
Maybe if that guy hadn't freaked out, they would have just chilled and asked if they had any snacks.
like he really just wanted a zebra cake. Like, he was just really hard up for some Little Debbies.
Like, have you ever like looked at your robot hands?
So that starts a kerfluffle, and everybody basically turns around, right? And they get into combat mode.
Mm-hmm. Because all he had to do was like hit it in one shot, and of course he like hits it in the least vulnerable part, and it falls over.
And cries for help.
Yeah, it's not even that he had to hit it one spot. He's like, no, it's no problem. I can hit it in the right spot. Immediately fails.
This guy is so bad at his job, like the Domon has to rush back from halfway out into the ocean to kill the robot for him.
It's one of those.
He's like, it's making noise. I don't know what to do. Like, hit it again.
Yeah, how about you shoot it in the head this time?
How about you shoot it in that giant target-like eyeball it's staring at you with?
Yeah, you have targeting systems on your mobile suit. Use them. It wasn't even moving.
Expensive equipment designed to hit tiny targets. Use the targeting computer.
That said, we do get some cool moments in the back legs of one of the Centaur Zaku's getting shot off, and then it's sort of rising back up into a bipedal.
I was like, oh, backup legs.
Yeah, so like it has two sets of legs that can like go from like a four-legged to a two-legged suit, which is like a cool design, and it does make them seem a little more monstery.
Yeah, and I would have definitely liked to see that, like, when they go to this four-legged form, they might have a bigger weapon to utilize. Like, say, like they can't fire this cannon. It's kind of kind of like in Gundam Wing, where the Wing Zero in Endless Waltz, right? Where he was firing the double-barreled beam cannon, but he fired it too rapidly and he destroyed his arms. Well, in this case, they need to brace themselves with these extra legs to fire this monster cannon.
Yeah, it would have been cool to feel like there was a little more justification for the extra legs other than it looks cool or whatever. But that said, I will never turn down a robot carrying a giant spiked bat. I don't know why. Totally inefficient as a robot weapon, but it looks hella cool and I will always accept it.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah, the Zaku. I will say the Zaku's always get the barbarian style melee weapons, whether it's like the battle axe or like spiked mace. Like
but you want barbarism though. Let's talk about the ending of that friggin' Zaku. And
okay,
yeah, you lead it in.
So they all get back. Like the Zaku is downed, and then Master Asia comes back, and then the cockpit opens on the Zaku, and like a skeleton that's covered in those weird Devil Gundam cells pops out, and it is like really freaky looking.
Yeah, it is back into the horror vibe. Like we have left Kids Show Master Asia comedy.
It looks like a Darkspawn from the Dragon Age series.
But Master Asia defeats it by summoning a fireball.
Again, Master Asia gives no fucks. He defies all reality. He is a Street Fighter character turned real.
Like he literally waves his hand and it starts on fire somehow.
Listen,
you're so far from real robots.
Yeah, okay, sorry, I lost order here. Is that after Domon gives the shining finger to the robot? Is that after? Is that when the guy pops out of the cockpit?
Domon comes back and he shining fingers the robot so that they can reuse the animation of shining finger
But
in this episode.
But it is, I will say, having that Zaku skull with the human-looking eyeball, even though they go out of their way to kind of give it some like cybernetic-y looking circuit stuff as it explodes, it is creepy AF to have his fist coming through the back of the eye, having the eye like being destroyed and the hand passing through it. Like, I was like, that's a little intense for kids.
Yeah. And it's after that point, right, is when the cockpit opens and the squishy skeleton.
Yeah, and then they ramp it up even further. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was awesome, don't get me wrong. I just was like, wow, Walmart must have had some issues.
Yeah, Walmart was like, hell no.
Yeah, they're not making a model of that one. Mommy, can I have the squishy wet zombie skeleton mobile suit model? So, because this is basically the end of the episode, I think. Because do we get anything else after this, or do we get the?
We just sort of get the reveal that the reason that this is proof that the Death Army is being run by the Devil Gundam and therefore Koji. So we do get the big reveal in the background of the Devil Gundam like hanging over them for a second, and then it kind of like pans out and cuts away.
Okay, so before we get to favorite moments, I did want to just touch on something that I've kind of brought up in previous episodes, which is previous series that we've gone through, the last couple, there's always a team in place. And it may not be in place immediately as with Wing, but you get to a kind of team point. And this show has always felt like we're getting to that team point, where like we're meeting these various characters and they're going to kind of whatever. And at the same time, Domon is a very lone wolf character. I mean, Hero was a very lone wolf character, but as soon as you establish him as the King of Hearts or whatever, that kind of gives him like his own little weird vibe. And so I wonder, and I guess this might be spoiling my own show, but is Master Asia going to be the linchpin that finally starts pulling these guys together? And like, are we going to end up with a proper team thing, or is it going to just be a series of spot welds essentially, where we keep having Jiminy Cricket show up for? No, that's not his name. What's his name? Jibbity Crockett. There you go.
So here's my prediction from one newbie to another. Master Asia is going to act as Nick Fury and bring the Avengers to a common cause. And Domon is still going to be a jerk, very Iron Man. Chibbity Crockett is definitely going to be our Captain America. Goody two-shoes, really wants everybody to get along, but has a little bit of a temper issue. Thor is going to be George with his rose bits.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And we're not going to have Mexico, because Mexico says he's done. We may have Canada, because Canada is all about righting the wrongs and stuff. We may have Russia, because he's kind of turned a little bit of a leaf. But
I feel like socially
the intro too.
Right.
And then obviously Saichi is our Spider-Man.
Yeah, that's fair.
I do think I agree with you. I think we're going to get Russia partly because of the period in which this show was made and having Russia be an influence in pop culture, sort of.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to have America, you kind of have to have Russia.
Yeah.
Like, the thing that's interesting about this series, about the way the Gundams come together, is that they like align on certain fronts, but they're still like rivals in this tournament that's going on. And that's like a tension that goes through the whole series, which is interesting.
Yes, well, there's a tension between this being a show nominally about a fighting tournament versus it being a show about murdering a zombie.
And I will say that there is kind of a theme like any shonen show where your character has to prove themselves in some way before this show will recognize them as being one of a group or kind of, the cadre of badasses, right? And we've not seen that a lot. That's one of the problems I have with this show, is that we don't get enough of the side characters. Not in the intro anyway. Not in the beginning of the series anyway. Because it focuses mainly on Domon and all of his stuff.
I guess that's where I'm coming from, too, is that I feel like we've been introduced to these guys, but I keep waiting for the next shoe to drop, sort of, and have them be more thrust into the spotlight. And I'm wondering if we're always just going to have King of Hearts and Rain sort of tagging along and never actually the team aspect, for some reason, I keep expecting.
Well, I think we're very close to getting a reveal about what the King of Hearts title is, and I'm not going to spoil that.
Oh, I did want to mention, and this could actually be my favorite thing of the show, was when they meet, Master Asia makes some, like, it's a comment about how, oh, well, I've got to respect the King of Hearts or whatever, but the way he delivers it, it almost kind of seems like, well, I let you be King of Hearts, so I guess I got to pay attention to it.
Yeah, the line is, how are you, or greetings, Domon, I think it's my pupil, but then he says, well, I should say the man I recognize as the King of Hearts.
Yeah. The man I'll allow for now to be the King of Hearts.
There is a lot to that. That is a loaded statement, if there ever was.
Yeah, because he totally says it like he let Domon borrow his car.
Exactly.
Like, how's that car running that is your car but is totally my car?
Yeah, you won that Formula 1 race with the car I let you borrow, but remember, it's still my car. But I do think also in the next 3 to 4 episodes, you will get a lot of answers to these questions, Jurd. A lot of questions.
Yeah, what's interesting here is that we're getting a lot of connective tissue between the plot episodes for a show that is really, at its heart, should be just, here's a robot, here's another robot with a, national stereotypical sort of layout, and now they fight, and one of them wins, and now they move on to the next country. Generally, that's what the fighting tournament shows are. So it's interesting that they're like, well, here's a bunch of weird background stuff that's not really related to that tournament.
And I will say a lot of that will also be answered, well, throughout the series, but also in these next coming up episodes. I would say next 3 to 4 episodes, maybe even 5, are jammed packed with a lot of backstory, a lot of fleshing out of this universe and what's actually going on with Domon, with the Dark Army, with the King of Hearts, and a bit of and this will be a slight bit of a spoiler because obviously it's the King of Hearts, and it's been hinted at a team which would be dubbed the Shuffle Alliance, and you'll learn about them as well.
Yes.
You'll learn about them as well. If I'm not mistaken, I think you learn about them in the next 2 episodes.
Like, it's really soon.
Yeah, like it's like, to be honest, they could have just did a to be continued on these episodes. These, like, the next 2 or 3 episodes could have literally just fed into one another as a to be continued. And so it's and this is where, again, the insanity kicks up to high levels, because listen, we've had these same mobile suits for a while. So we're getting towards that point in a Gundam show where we got to start kind of hinting at upgrades, because we've already sold these model kits, got to get new ones. So
favorite parts?
Okay, my favorite part was a part we didn't actually talk about when Master Asia is showing Domon and Rain around the refugee camps on the lower floors of the building. One of the pilots who are in these, like, very kind of generic Defense Force robots that are Gundams, like, freaks out and decides he's going to take his chances and tries to fly away. And he immediately is, like, cut down by a hail of gunfire. These machines do not have any guns at any other time, but in that one scene, guns everywhere. And they also
have been, they even say that they don't attack aggression. They only attack people who are aggressive to them. What does his traveling have to do with aggression?
I honestly think it's some sort of weird IFF system, identify friend or foe, and they're pinpointed toward Zaku's that have a specific metallurgical makeup. That is my thought. Jurd, favorite point. Or Jason, you seem to have one. I'm still thinking of mine. That's why I'm.
My favorite part, as I have mentioned multiple times before this episode, is Master Asia, because he's ridiculous. He is the embodiment of the dumb that this show embodies, and it's great. Like, and again, we haven't even got to the craziest thing Master Asia does. Like, we still haven't seen the horse. Like,
No.
Like,
We see.
Well, we
see
did.
him.
We did.
No, we do see him like walking, like standing on his horse in the middle of Tokyo in a flashback. Like he's not riding the horse; he is standing on it because he's a martial artist.
Exactly, but there's
there was a flashback silhouette where the Double Gundam's in the background and he's standing on the horse as the horse is running away from the Double Gundam.
Yes, he's standing on. But
I was gonna say my favorite moment was that little exchange where Master Asia essentially concedes that he could still be the King of Hearts if he wanted to, but I have to go with that friggin' sequence in which Master Asia goes into a robot that begins spinning into an energy ball, and then his head fades out and fades into his actual head, and then he fires into the enemy lines like a pinball. Like, that whole sequence is a madness that we would not see in any other series we've watched so far. Like, no moment in Gundam Wing. The hero may do a lot of dumb things. Hero may do anything at any given moment. He is not going to fire, like, Duo into a crowd. Anyway,
Duo would do it, and he would line his giant brain with something that would, like, shred, and so he would use his...
My thing is,
giant ponytail like a whip.
Here's a question.
Or a flail.
Why did Duo never play his braid like a flute?
I was actually about to raise that same question, so there you go.
Duo is not enough of a martial arts master to do that.
he does not have enough machismo, but for that. Speaking of which, that is going to be my favorite part of this of the series or of this episode is machismo magic. Before Master Asia reveals his face, you see this one masked and turbaned fighter against a Zaku, and he gets debris on him, and you're like, oh, well, that dude's dead. No, he gets up and, like, force pushes this giant slab of concrete away from him into the Zaku. So, magic by machismo.
Listen, if we've learned anything from Go Nagai, is if you scream enough and have enough burning youthful passion, you can defeat any enemy. Which is a question. Have Spence, Jurd, have either of you seen Gurren Lagann?
No.
You think this pinball attack was something special? Holy hell. That show, literally at points, they throw galaxies at each other. Literal galaxies. And it's amazing. It's one of the greatest odes to Go Nagai mech anime you have ever seen in your life. Because a titular quote from that show is, "Don't believe in yourself. Believe in the me that believes in you." Whatever that means. And it works. So when we're done with Gundam, we definitely have to watch Gurren Lagann.
Gurren Lagann would be a good series for us to do. It's much more in the vein of G Gundam than it is like the original series.
Yes, because our drill points to the heavens. But yeah, so that is what I've been waiting for, guys. It took a while to get here, to finally meet the undefeated of the East.
The batshit insanity that is Toho Huhai.
Yes, and we're just cracking the door, guys.
Yeah.
You haven't seen a horse pilot a mobile suit yet?
What do we have on tap for next week in that case?
Next week is episode 13, which is Domon versus the Big Five.
How did they miss the opportunity to do a King of Hearts episode because his tattoo has a frickin' 13 on it?
You might be onto something there, Spence.
Like? I know things and stuff.
You might be onto something.
Indeed.
Oh man.
Anyway.
Yes. So until next week, you can find all of our show notes and links at nostalgiapilots.com. Find everything I do at hughjodonnell.com.
You can find everything I do over at skinner.fm.
You can find everything I do at nerdswithvoices.com.
And I'm over at resonantmoon.com.
Till next week, have a good night, and Mobile Suits battling it out. What happened here?
The world will never know.
Look, the east is burning red.